When Elon Musk's phone rang that Tuesday evening, he had no idea his life was about to change. Forever after 32 years of silence, his childhood nanny Maribel Vega was calling from a rundown nursing home in Arizona at 85 years old and facing a transfer to a terrible state facility. She just wanted to hear his voice one last time. She never expected what would happen next within hours. Elon canceled all his meetings and boarded his private jet. What he discovered at Sunshine Valley Care Home would break his heart, but the secret Maribel had kept for. Decades would change everything he thought he knew about his success. Elon Musk rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the rocket blueprints on his computer screen. The SpaceX factory floor stretched out below his glass-walled office, buzzing with activity. Even at this late hour, engineers moved between massive rocket parts like ants, building something much bigger than themselves. Just 5 more minutes, he mumbled to himself. Though he'd been saying that for the past 2 hours, his cell phone vibrated on his desk. An unknown number with an Arizona area code flashed on the screen. Elon nearly ignored it. Probably another reporter or someone trying to pitch him a business idea. His finger hovered over the decline button. Something made him pause. Maybe it was the late hour, or maybe it was the strange feeling that had followed him all day, like he was forgetting something important. He picked up the phone. "Hello, this is Elon." At first he heard nothing but soft breathing. Then came a voice shaky and thin, with age yet with a warm Spanish accent that tugged at memories buried deep in his mind. "Hello, is this really Elon Musk?" the elderly woman asked. "Yes, it is. Who's calling?" Elon swiveled his chair to face the window, watching a test rocket being assembled below. "This is Maribel Vega. I was your nanny when you were a little boy in South Africa." The voice paused. "I don't know if you remember me." Elon's hand tightened around the phone. The busy factory floor seemed to fade away. Suddenly he was a small boy again, sitting at a wooden kitchen table while gentle hands placed a plate of cinnamon cookies in front of him. "Maribel," his voice dropped to a whisper. "Of course I remember you." He heard a soft gasp, then what sounded like a muffled SOB. "I wasn't sure, it's been so long." She said 32 years to be exact, 32 years. Elon repeated, trying to process the number more than half his lifetime. "How did you find me?" "I mean, obviously, I'm not hard to find these days, but..." Marbell laughed softly. "Even in my little nursing home in Arizona, we have television. I see you on the news, always building something new, always reaching for the stars, just like you said. You would nursing home," the words sank in, slowly. "Maribel would be in her 80s now." "Are you?" "Well," he asked, suddenly worried about why she might be calling after all this time. There was a slight pause, as well as can be expected. "At 85, she answered. "Time has its way with all of us." Elon found himself calculating how old she had been when she cared for him, early 50s. Most likely not as old as he had thought. As a child, children always think adults are ancient. "Where exactly are you?" "Which nursing home?" he asked, already opening his laptop to search. "Sunshine Valley Care Home in Phoenix," she replied. "But please, I didn't call to trouble you. Her voice broke slightly. "I just wanted to hear your voice again," before she didn't finish the sentence. But Elon understood. A heaviness settled in his chest. "Why now, Maribel?" he asked gently. He heard her take a deep breath. "The home where I live is having financial problems. Many of us are being transferred to a state facility next month. I was going through my few belongings, deciding what to keep, when I found something that reminded me of you." "What was it?" Elon asked, curious. "A little drawing you made for me. Stars and rockets and a little boy with big dreams." She chuckled softly. "You were always drawing rockets." Elon smiled despite the growing knot in his stomach. "I still draw rockets. Now I just have people who build them for me. I've seen them on TV, flying up and coming back down. It's like magic, it's just physics." Elon replied automatically, then immediately felt foolish for the correction. "To you, maybe to me. It's still magic," she said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "You always tried to explain how things worked, even as a little boy. So serious with your explanations." Images flickered through Elon's mind, sitting beside Mar on the porch, pointing out constellations, her patient smile, as he dismantled an old radio to see its insides. Her hand steady on his shoulder after a day of bullying at school. Maribel about this state facility. No, no, she interrupted firmly. I didn't call to ask for money, Elon. I would never, I just wanted her voice grew softer. When you get to my age, you think about the children you've known. I never had my own, but I helped raise many. I wondered what happened to that quiet boy with the big ideas. And now I know you did everything you said you would. Elon felt a tightness in his throat. This woman had believed in him when few others did. She had never once told him his dreams were too big or impossible, and now she was calling not for help, but just to say she was proud Maribel. I have meetings I can cancel. I can come to Arizona. Oh, you're much too busy for that. She protested. I'm never too busy for someone. Who mattered to me, Elon said firmly, surprising himself with how much he meant it. Give me your direct number. I'll call you tomorrow with my plans. After getting her information and saying goodbye, Elon sat in silence, staring at the phone in his hand. His executive assistant, Javier, knocked on the doorframe. Your team has been waiting in the conference room for 15 minutes. Javier reminded him. Elon looked up, his mind already racing far beyond the meeting. Cancel it, cancel everything for the next 3 days. Javier blinked in. Surprise everything. There's the board meeting tomorrow and the interview with all of it. Something more important has come up. Elon stood pocketing his phone book. The jet for tomorrow morning, we're going to Phoenix. May I ask why? Elon paused at the door. Someone who believed in me when no one else did needs help. He glanced back at the rocket blueprints on his screen. Everything else can wait. Javier stared at Elon in confusion, then nodded slowly. I'll take care of it back in his office. Elon sank into his chair. The upcoming rocket launch, the new Tesla design, the meetings with investors. All of it seemed distant, now blurred by memories that had been dormant for decades, but now rushed back with startling clarity. He closed his eyes and was suddenly 8 years old again, sitting at the kitchen table in their house in Pretoria, South Africa. Eat your vegetables, Elon, his mother had said before, rushing off to a meeting. His father was away on business. As usual, young Elon poked at the pile of peas with his fork, building a small green mountain that he had no intention of eating. Maribel appeared beside him, her dark hair streaked with silver. Even back then, her warm brown eyes crinkling at the corners. You know, she said, sitting down next to him, astronauts eat all their vegetables. They need strong bodies to withstand space travel. Elon looked up. Suddenly interested, really? Oh, yes, Maribel nodded seriously, and their minds must be sharp too. The brain needs good food to solve all those math problems that get rockets into space. By the time she finished her story about NASA astronauts and their special diets, Elon had eaten all his peas. Without noticing, that was her gift. She never forced or scolded. She simply connected what needed to be done with what he loved. The memory faded as Elon opened his eyes. He reached for his phone and began searching for information about Sunshine Valley Care Home. The website looked outdated with poor quality photos showing a brick building surrounded by patchy grass. There were vague promises of quality care and compassionate service, but the facility clearly struggled for funding more. Troubling were the reviews. Several mentioned staff shortages and basic maintenance issues. One resident's family complained about repeated moves to lower-cost facilities when money ran out. Elon's jaw tightened. Maribel deserved better than this. He glanced at his watch. It was too late to call her back. Now she'd probably gone to sleep instead. He dug deeper into his memories, trying to remember everything about the woman who had shaped so much of his early life. He was 10 years old, walking home from school with his head down and a bruise forming under his eye. What happened? Maribel gasped when he trudged through the door. Nothing, he mumbled, trying to push past her to hide in his room. Maribel gently blocked his path. That is not nothing, Elon. She led him to the bathroom and carefully cleaned his face, her touch careful around the swollen skin. The other boys, they called me weird. He finally admitted, his voice small. They said, I talk about stupid things. Then they pushed me down. Maribel's eyes flashed with anger, but her voice remained soft. Let me tell you something important. Being different is not bad. The ones who change the world are always different. Later that evening, she had come to his room with a small package wrapped in newspaper. I saw this and thought of you, she said, handing it to him. Inside was a metal rocket model, silver and gleaming. It wasn't expensive or fancy, But to young Elon, it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen one day. "You will build real ones," she said, sitting beside him on the bed. "The stars are waiting for you, Elon. Sometimes the people who fly highest are the ones who had to look up." The most he'd kept that rocket for years until Elon snapped back to the present, suddenly wondering what had happened to that model. Had he lost it? During one of the many moves, was it packed away somewhere in storage? He made a mental note to look for it when he returned outside his office window. The U factory had grown quieter as the night shift took over fewer people. More machines working in the dim light progress, continuing even while most of the world slept. Another memory surfaced. Elon, at 12, huddled in the kitchen as his parents argued in the living room. Their voices grew louder, sharp words cutting through the walls. The marriage was ending. Though he didn't fully understand that yet, Maribel had sat beside him, not offering empty reassurances or telling him everything would be fine. Instead, she taught him to make bread, his small hands covered in flour, as she showed him how to knead the dough. "Life will change many times, Elon," she had said, "but you can always make something good with what you have. Push the air out, fold it over, make it stronger." He'd focused intently on the dough as tears slid down his face. Maribel had simply handed him a towel for his hands and then his cheeks, giving him the dignity of handling his own emotions. The bread had turned out lopsided and slightly burnt, but she declared it perfect. Elon smiled at the memory that was the year before she left. His father didn't see the need for a nanny. As Elon grew older, money was tighter after the divorce, logical reasons were given, but her absence had left a hole in his life that he'd filled. With books and computers, he'd never thought to look for her. After becoming successful, she'd been from the before part of his life, and he was always focused on the future, the next project, the next breakthrough. How many other people had he left behind in his relentless forward motion? Elon got up and walked to the large window overlooking the factory floor. Rockets being built to carry humans to Mars, cars designed to end humanity's dependence on fossil fuels, solar technology, to harness the sun's power, all revolutionary ideas that had once seemed impossible, and a woman who had never doubted they were possible now lay in a rundown nursing home, about to be moved to an even worse place with no one to fight for her. He pressed his palm against the cool glass. "I'm coming, Maribel," he whispered that night. Elon slept on the couch in his office, his dreams filled with star cars, rockets, and the kind smile of the woman who had first believed those dreams could come true. Morning came with a pink-orange sky. Elon showered in the executive bathroom and changed into fresh clothes he kept. At the office, by the time Javier arrived with coffee, Elon had already made several calls and sent dozens of emails. "The jet is ready," Javier said, placing the cup on Elon's desk. "But may I ask why this is so urgent? The board is quite upset about the canceled meeting." Elon took a sip of coffee and stood up, gathering his phone and laptop because kindness has a time limit. "Javier, and I'm already 32 years late." Javier looked puzzled but nodded respectfully. "Your car is waiting downstairs." The drive to the private airfield was quiet. Elon stared out the window, watching the California landscape rush by. As the morning sun climbed higher, his mind was already in Arizona, wondering what he would find there on the jet. Elon settled into his seat as the engines hummed to life. A flight attendant offered him breakfast, but he only asked for coffee. His appetite had disappeared, replaced by a nervous energy he hadn't felt since his early startup days. "We should arrive in Phoenix in approximately 1 hour and 45 minutes, sir." The pilot informed him over the intercom. Elon pulled out his laptop and began researching more about Sunshine Valley Care Home and the state facility where Maribel might be transferred. What he found made his stomach tighten. The state facility had been cited multiple times for understaffing, medication errors, and unsanitary conditions. Recent budget cuts had made things worse. Residents often spent hours alone in their rooms. Meals were basic at best, and activities were almost non-existent. No wonder Maribel had sounded so worried. It wasn't just about moving, it was about spending her final years in a place where she would be treated as a burden rather than as a person with dignity. Elon dug deeper, reading news articles about the growing crisis in elder care across America. Millions of seniors without family support or sufficient savings face similar situations. The problem was massive and complex, exactly the kind of challenge that usually sparked his interest. But this wasn't just an interesting problem to solve. This was Maribel. This was personal. He closed his laptop and gazed out the window at the clouds below. His executive team would be scrambling right now, rescheduling meetings and making excuses to investors. Some would be angry. A few might even question his judgment or stability. Let them wonder, for once, the most important thing wasn't the next breakthrough or the next quarter's profits. It was repaying a debt of kindness. 3 decades overdue, the two-plane began its descent into Phoenix. The landscape below transformed from green California hills to the reddish-brown of the Arizona desert, dotted with neighborhoods and swimming pools that glittered like blue gems in the sunlight. As the wheels touched down, Elon felt oddly unprepared. He could present to thousands of people without notes, negotiate billion-dollar deals, and make decisions that affected global industries. But what would he say to Maribel? What could possibly express the gratitude he felt for her belief in him when he was just a strange, awkward boy with unlikely dreams at the terminal? A black SUV waited as arranged. The driver reached for Elon's Z-bag, but he shook his head. "I'll just take this myself, thanks," he said, holding on to his small overnight bag, "and I'd like to drive myself if possible." The driver seemed surprised but handed over the keys. "It's the black Tesla Model X, sir. GPS is already set for your destination." Elon smiled slightly at the irony. Of course they'd arranged a Tesla. Thank you. Behind the wheel of his own company's creation, Elon felt more in control. He pulled away from the private terminal and merged onto the highway, following the navigation system's directions toward Sunshine Valley Care Home. The drive took him through Phoenix's sprawling suburbs, past strip malls and housing developments that all looked similar in the harsh midday sun. As he got further from the city center, the neighborhoods grew older, the buildings more worn. Sunshine Valley was located in a neighborhood that had clearly seen better days. Small businesses with faded signs lined the main street: a laundromat, a pawn shop, a dollar store. The care home itself sat back from the road, a low brick building surrounded by patchy grass and a few struggling trees. Elon parked in the small lot and sat for a moment, hands still gripping the steering wheel. The building looked even more run down than in the photos. Paint peeled from the trim, and a wheelchair ramp appeared to be missing several boards. The sign announcing Sunshine Valley Care Home hung slightly crooked, the V in Valley missing entirely. Was this really where Marbell had spent her recent years? The woman who had created warmth and comfort for others now lived in a place that seemed to lack both. Elon took a deep breath and grabbed his phone, sending a quick text to Javier. "Arrived at the home, will update later." Then he stepped out into the hot Arizona air. The reception area smelled of disinfectant and old carpet. A tired-looking woman in scrubs looked up from a computer that appeared at least a decade old. Her name tag read Darla. "Can I help you?" she asked. Then her eyes widened with recognition. "Oh my goodness, yes." Elon cut in quickly. "I'm here to see Maribel Vega. I believe she's expecting me." Darla continued to stare for several seconds before snapping back to attention. Of course, let me just..." She fumbled with the ancient computer. "Maribel mentioned a special visitor, but we didn't think, I mean, she talks about you all the time, but we thought it was just confusion." Elon supplied. Darla nodded, looking embarrassed. "I'm sorry, it's just that many of our residents have such amazing life stories, and sometimes the lines between memory and wishful thinking get blurred." She stood up, but Marble was telling the truth all along. She really did help raise Elon Musk. "She did much more than that," Elon said quietly. "Is she in her room?" "Yes, she's resting. She has physical therapy in the mornings, and it tires her out." Darla came around the desk. "I'll take you to her, fair warning, though. News travels fast here. Once the other residents find out you're really here, they'll all want to meet you." Elon nodded. "That's fine." As they walked down a long hallway lined with generic landscape prints in cheap frames, Darla spoke softly. "Maribel is one of our favorites. You know, always kind, never complains. She helps translate for our Spanish-speaking residents, even though she's not supposed to get out of her wheelchair without assistance." Darla shook her head. "We're all heartbroken about the transfers." "Transfers?" Elon asked, though. He already knew the home was bought by a healthcare corporation. They're closing us down next month to renovate and reopen as a rehabilitation center for outpatient surgeries. More profitable. Darla's voice held no bitterness, just resignation. Most of our residents will go to the state FAC Fady. About 20 miles from here, they stopped outside a door with a handwritten sign, Maribel's room. Dara knocked gently. Maribel. You have a visitor, she called softly, then opened the door. The small room was neat but sparse, a single bed, a dresser, a chair by the window. The walls held a few framed photos and what looked like children's drawings, and there by the window, looking smaller than he remembered, sat Maribel Vega. She turned her face, lighting up with a smile that erased years from her face. Elon, she whispered, you really came. Elon stood frozen for a moment, taking in the sight of her Maribel. A hair was completely silver, now thin, and pulled back in a simple bun. Her hands, once strong enough to knead bread dough and lift a struggling boy, looked fragile, spotted with age. But her eyes, those warm brown eyes, were exactly the same. Of course I came, he finally said, moving into the room. Darla quietly slipped out, closing the door behind her. Elon knelt beside Maribel's wheelchair, suddenly unsure what to do with his hands or what to say. All the rehearsed greetings he'd practiced on the plane vanished. Maribel solved the problem by reaching out and touching his face. Her cool fingers, gentle against his cheek. Look at you, she said softly. Just as I imagined, except the lines here. She traced the corners of his eyes. These are new. I'm not a kid anymore. Elon said, smiling. No, but I can still see him in there. She dropped her hand to his and squeezed with surprising strength. I'm sorry I never reached out before. I didn't want to be a burden. You could never be a burden, Elon said firmly. He pulled the room's only chair closer to her wheelchair and sat down. Tell me everything. What happened after you left? South Africa? Where did you go? How did you end up here? Maribel's story unfolded slowly. After leaving the Musk family, she had worked for several other families in PTR, then Johannesburg, caring for children and helping with housekeeping. In her 60s, her younger sister in Arizona had fallen ill with cancer. Maribel used her small savings to move to the United States to care for her. After her sister died, Maribel stayed, finding work as a housekeeper and nanny for wealthy families in Phoenix. I was too old for full-time childcare by then, man, she explained, but I could clean and cook. The children called me abuela. Even though I wasn't their grandmother, she had never married or had children of her own. My life was taking care of other people's families, she said without regret. I loved each child in my care, some more than others, she added with a wink. As she grew older, work became harder to find. She lived frugally on her small Social Security checks. But when she slipped and broke her hip 3 years ago, everything changed. After hospital stays and rehabilitation, she couldn't live independently anymore. Sunshine Valley was the only place she could afford. It's not so bad, she insisted. The staff tries their best. There just aren't enough of them, and the owners care more about money than old people. And now they're closing, Elon said. Maribel nodded, her expression clouding the state place. I've heard stories, people left in bed all day, not enough food. She straightened her shoulders. But I'll manage, I always do that. Quiet dignity broke something in Elon's heart. Here was the woman who had celebrated every small achievement of his childhood, now bravely facing neglect in her final years. You don't have to manage, not anymore, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I can help. Maribel's eyes flashed. I didn't call for charity, Elon. It's not charity. It's he searched for the right words. It's what family does. You were more family to me than many of my blood relatives. Her expression softened. You were a special boy, but you have your own family now. Your own children to think about. A commotion in the hallway interrupted them. Voices grew louder, excited. Someone knocked on the door. Come in, Maribel called. The door opened and Darla peered in apologetically. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but word has spread. The other residents are very excited, and a few are quite insistent about meeting Mr. Musk. Behind Darla, Elon could see several elderly faces peering curiously into the room. He looked at Maribel, who nodded with an amused smile. You might as well meet them. They'll talk about this for months. Over the next hour, Elon was introduced to many of Sunshine Valley's